Welcome to episode 39 of the David Binkowski podcast. My guest today is Spoutible founder Christopher Bouzy. Christopher created Spoutible as a safe place for people to have conversations online and a Twitter alternative that is free of bots and trolls and harassment. At the end of the episode, Christopher answers actual questions from Spoutible members. Let's get to that conversation. Christopher, welcome to the podcast. Welcome back to the podcast, I should say.
Hey, thank you for inviting me back, David. It's good to be here.
Absolutely. I am so happy to be talking with you 1 month after the launch of Spoutible, which we'll talk about in just a second here. But you and I connected a couple of years ago when we had an episode, if you want to catch that one, where we talked about social media and disinformation. And it was a great episode if you want to learn more about Christopher's background, all that stuff. But we're here to talk about Spoutible is born out of the need that society has and that people have to use a community online, to be a part of a community online, to have discussions online and not get harassed. So I'd like you to talk to me about Spoutible. I do have questions for you from Spoutible users at the end of this. It's about 12 questions. A lot of them are feature related, so it should be pretty easy to bang out. But
Sure.
I'd love to talk to you about Spoutible and just the level of I've seen a very, very small group of people who just can't stop talking about you, and I can relate to this. So I wanted to have you on to talk about them as well. So for the folks who don't know, just give them a quick rundown on Spoutible, give them the sell, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, sure. I mean, Spoutible the whole idea came out of the fact that Twitter was rapidly declining in terms of we started having a lot of Nazis. I mean, there's no other way to find them coming onto the platform, attacking folks, whether you were, someone who was Jewish or a person of color or whatever. You just had a lot of these anti-Semitic folks and racist folks. And then, engagement overall started to decline because a lot of folks were leaving off of Twitter for a lot of different various reasons. And I just thought that, look, with the experience that I've had with Bot Sentinel and, being on the front lines, fighting mis and disinformation and targeted harassment, and also, being on the receiving end of targeted harassment and also mis and disinformation, I thought it would be great to take what we've learned as a company and launch Spoutible, launch a platform, a social media platform that would have all these different safeguards in place to protect our users. So whether you are a person of color, or you're part of the LGBTQ plus community, or just a marginalized person in general, you come to our platform and you just almost instantly feel safe. Because we are actively going after accounts that are trying to harass individuals. We are, actively, releasing new features. I mean, almost weekly, where, our users' well-being, their mental health is for us is a priority. It's not revenue. It's not how many clicks can we drive, how much ads we can sell each month. It's about our users. And so far, I mean, overwhelmingly, people who use Spoutible for more than a few minutes, who actually engage with folks, come away with, I have never been on a social media platform that feels like this, that I feel safe. I'm wanting to engage. And, you just don't have the toxicity of Twitter.
Yeah, the big difference, and I'm on there, same username I have on Twitter and elsewhere is David Binkowski, but the big difference for me, using the platform, all the things that you said, absolutely, but there's no algorithm trying to trigger you into more engagement. And so if you want to get up and walk away from your laptop or your phone or whatever however you're using it, you can just do that. And there's not this sense of anxiety, anger, any of those negative emotions that come with being in a really toxic place. And that to me is the most refreshing part about it. The users are great. The people on there, the fellow spouters are like They're great. I asked, like I said, I put out a question. I'm not, then you're coming on the podcast. Send me your questions, and they're all good questions. And it doesn't matter what topic they can talk about on the platform. There's not someone there instantly trying to be the sixth grade bully or the asshole. And that's, I mean, think about Facebook, right? Everyone arguing over politics and all this stuff. Think about Twitter. Think about all these platforms that they're built for triggering you and making you unhappy and stickiness. And your platform is about actually having conversations. Holy shit. We would have thought in 2023, as a platform, we could go and actually have a conversation with someone and not get screamed at or called a name.
And that's what it's all about. And I also know, look, at the end of the day, as the CEO of the company, that I also set the tone of the platform. And that's what I've been doing, because I want people to come to the platform and do exactly what you're saying, to have these discussions, to get into these debates. But it's not the toxicity that comes with it on other platforms, that we're not trying to pit one side against the other, that we're actually trying to encourage healthy debate amongst each other. And you're right, we're not really using algorithms to trigger folks. I mean, your timeline is what you see is what you get. So whoever you're following, as they're spouting things out, it's coming through your timeline. We're not dictating what you should or shouldn't see. And so, it's raw. I mean, there's no other way to put it. It's raw in terms of, it's not someone sitting somewhere trying to squeeze out as much engagement as possible with an algorithm. It's not a group of folks trying to manipulate, folks on the platform. It's just people coming together and discussing whatever it is on their minds. And I can tell you, engagement is like ridiculously high. And also, we're noticing that if you're on Spoutible and you are interacting with folks, you will just notice, and it's hard to put in words. And, so I just encourage people to go to spoutible.com and create an account. But you will notice, if you go to Spoutible versus Twitter and you spout something out, you're going to have folks that are going to reply. Whereas like on Twitter, and this goes back to engagement, but on Twitter, you create a new account. Sometimes it takes months before you actually get engagement. You can reply to people and you get ignored and things like that. That doesn't happen on Spoutible. If people are spouting out and they're engaging with others, they're going to see replies. They're going to get follows. It's just different, and to be quite frank, it's nothing I've experienced before ever.
The history of it reminds me of when Twitter first came out. Quite frankly, it was, especially now, the early adopters are in, they actually want to be there, engaged, and all those things. When Twitter was born out of kind of meetups and doing like live broadcasting from conferences and like going to concerts, and it was about talking about stuff in real time. And then as those things still happen, it started to become about talking to each other and creating your own communities, and that is completely gone. Like, it has become tribalism at its worst. It's funny because when I think back about the history of Twitter and microblogging and all that stuff, I was working for a public relations firm when Twitter started taking off. And I was the senior vice president of word of mouth marketing. And this was a whole new thing. People having conversations online in these massive spaces that weren't just message boards. And I felt it was imperative that guidelines were created around ethics and rules for how brands should operate, communicate, and use these platforms. And those got adopted by the US government. But, over time, we've seen as the platform operators loosen their ethics, I'll put that nicely. Okay. But as they loosen their ethics, it's gone off the rails. In fact, I did a campaign for a restaurant chain that every time that they put on a new menu item or they announced it to the press would basically make fun of them because they saw themselves as being like elitist over, this everyday family type of restaurant chain. So I went directly to the bloggers, the Twitter users, and invited them to dinner with the CEO in New York City. So we're in Manhattan at a chain restaurant, and they're tasting the menu items. And what happened was exactly what I was afraid would happen. I mean, it was good, but afraid. Was the press started calling the public relations agency and asking why they weren't invited. So now instead of attacking this company or coming at them, we're not giving them a fair chance. We're saying, hey, if you like this type of food, this is the place for you. They would just get snarky right away and make fun of them. Now they're all of a sudden feeling like they're the ones who are not in the loop anymore. And once the media put the emphasis on Twitter is when things really started to change and it really went mainstream-ish. Now, again, I know a lot of people that sign up for Twitter and then just walked away from it because they're like, not for me, right? And that's fine. And one of the reasons that happens, and we'll talk about some of the stuff that's happened to you, is because of the targeted harassment. It's because there are people who are mentally disturbed or part of some weird political thing or whatever, where they think it's their right to go online and target people and harass them. You've had several people come at you. I've been watching this now. Even the episode, I've been throwing these episodes up on YouTube, and the episode that we talked about a year and a half, 2 years ago, the people were coming to comment negatively about you. And I'm like, what is this? So I started looking into it more. And I don't know where you want to start with this, but
I mean, look, it would take us hours to go through everything. But look, it starts like this. My company Bot Sentinel has been on the forefront in terms of going after these trolls. We work with numerous outlets. And last year we did a report on, it's actually a couple of different communities. In 2020, 2021, we did a report on Meghan Markle and these accounts that were going after her at the tail end of 2021. And then in 2022, we did a follow-up report on Amber Heard. We did something for her legal team, and it wasn't public or anything like that. They just wanted to get to the bottom of like where all these crazy accounts were coming from that were going after her, and to them it did not look authentic, and it was not. So we decided to do a public report because a lot of folks were asking us, hey, can you please do a public report? It was not paid by her team. No one associated with her or close to her or whatever paid for it. It was just something we decided to do because the community asked us to do it. And we released this report. And oh my goodness, like all these different factions in terms of these pro-Depp folks and these anti-Amber Heard folks, and then you have like this whole group of YouTubers who were making a hell of a lot of money off of attacking her, were upset because they got exposed. Yeah. So dealing with this type of stuff, whether it's the anti-Amber Heard folks or the anti-Meghan folks, I'm used to it, and I sincerely don't care. I'm going to be honest with you, because at the end of the day, I know they think like, we're actually doing something. They're not. No, they're pushing this mis and disinformation out there, and people with critical thinking skills ignore that. It has never stopped reporters from coming to us and working with us. It has never stopped, me being able to, like, I was in the Netflix documentary and they did all their vetting and things of that nature. It hasn't stopped that. I'm working on a book, working on a documentary. So, I mean, they've literally accomplished nothing, but
well, they did accomplish something. They helped raise awareness.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. They did help that. Yeah. And that's the part they don't get, that when you say these things, people actually start to dig in, and they are like, okay, well, you're saying this about this guy. Now I'm going to go and do my own research. And a lot of folks come back like, there's nothing here. Like, everything is either pointing to a Twitter post or some like weird person on a forum or Reddit, but there's no actual substance to what you're saying. But they don't get that into their head because it's just, for them, it's just like, oh, I'm saying this, and if I'm saying this, this is what I believe, and if I believe this is, it's almost like, I'm not kidding, and I compare it to Hillary Clinton. You have these folks who are just like, they just hate Hillary so much that they will say certain things, and it's like their critical thinking skills just completely just fails them because they're not thinking beyond the fact that I hate this woman. Yeah. So there are folks that just can't see beyond the fact that I hate this guy. So the biggest one that they like to say, well, this guy's this crypto scammer. He's this notorious crypto scammer. And I'll always laugh about this because I say this in a different way. So a few different ways. Like I said, I was recently in this Netflix documentary, that the Harry and Meghan one, and it's supposedly the most watched one, 100 and something million folks, or 100 and something million minutes, or something like that. And so this was viewed globally by a lot of folks. I'm a black guy with the name Christopher Bouzy. If I was this notorious crypto scammer, the very first thing is people would have been coming out of the woodwork saying, "Oh my God, I know this guy. This is the guy that scammed me." You know, my victims would have been going to the police or whatever the case may be. But when you bring that up to them, they don't have an answer. They'll just block you. You know, because there have been folks who said that, okay, well, this guy's been all over the place. He's been in multiple documentaries now. Why hasn't he been arrested? Where is his? Where you know? Where is the proof? Where's the meat at? But they still regurgitate it because they think it's doing something.
I can more than 1,000% understand this. As someone who's had many false claims and statements made about them. But this is what happens when you speak truth, and people don't want to hear it because it blows up their narrative. That's what it comes down to. Whether they're monetizing it or not, there are narratives that are out there on almost everything. And just like you mentioned, there are people trying to monetize it on YouTube, on whatever channel platform they're using. And so I'm a big fan of a whole story, not just like picking out little pieces. And like I said, I've been accused of things that are just false. Like they're not founded. There's no proof. There's no statements. There's no nothing. And people are like, "Oh, I know who you are," and you know, they'll make some stupid claim. Someone claimed that I was actively recruiting people to move to Puerto Rico to take advantage of tax benefits. Where? When? How? Like that doesn't exist. This is not true. But because you're a gringo and I don't like you, I'm going to say that about you. It's like, you know, like you are delusional. That's why I look at those people. Like they got something wrong where they are making up narratives in their head or playing to some narrative that their friends might like or people online might agree with, but it's not true. And so I 1,000% get it. There's the one guy I saw was harassing you, and he sent some of his people after me was Nate the lawyer. And there was another guy. There was this libertarian in Texas that, you know, I made a comment on something, and he decided to come after me for clout. And I was just like, wait a minute. So I went to Social Blade. And I looked up his followers on YouTube in particular. And it's crazy how he was gaining followers in 5,000 and 10,000 increments on a daily basis. Even numbers, which is fucking impossible. So he's a scammer. Move on. Go to the next person. But Nate the lawyer, he's a character, man.
I'll say this, look. With Nate the lawyer, character is a understatement. You know, he came on the scene when we published that report on YouTube and, you know, the targeted harassment, and, you know, YouTube is used actively for mis and disinformation and going after folks. And there are people who are monetizing this, that they have these channels and all they're doing is talking about, you know, an individual, whether it's Meghan Markle, Amber Heard, myself, I mean, you know, just people that they feel that are not that popular, so they can then get this audience that don't like whoever they're talking about and generate revenue. So this guy, Nate the lawyer, has, you know, monetized the whole Amber Heard stuff. He found out about me, started monetizing me, and then also Meghan Markle at the same time. He is a self-proclaimed grifter. He's called himself a grifter, and that is exactly what he's doing. He is grifting. But so he comes on the scene, we get into this like Twitter battle, whatever, and I publish a video of him where he talks about, you know, being a cop and then being an assistant DA, and, you know, cops coming in with, you know, guys that they've arrested. And, you know, he goes and says something, and I'm paraphrasing here. He goes and says something along the lines of, "Oh man, you know, you didn't find that in this guy's pocket. Come on, who you think you're fooling? You know, I mean, you know, blah blah blah. Because you know, I know all the tricks too. Because you know, I was doing it too, or you know, something along those lines, implying, you know, to anyone listening that, you know, this is something that he has experience doing." And I tweeted about it. So this guy, you know, he goes on YouTube, starts talking about me, starts talking all types of crazy stuff. And then, you know, out the blue, he talks about, you know what, I'm gonna shoot Bouzy, and I'm going to have this fundraiser, which he raises, I think the first time $30-something thousand bucks or something along those lines, $34,000, and then he sues me for defamation. Um, so it's interesting because one, he had a video where he claimed that my comments didn't hurt him at all. And then actually my comments helped him. He's making money, yada, yada, yada. So that's the first part. But secondly, I thought it was interesting because he thinks that I'm this poor guy that doesn't pay rent. This is his thing. And he thought, in my opinion, that he can file this lawsuit and that I would not answer it, that I would avoid it. He thought wrong. He misinterpreted the facts on the ground. So my company and I hired a law firm called Ballard Spahr, and they're well known for defending folks. They really focus a lot on the media. So almost, I really don't know like all their clients, but New York Times, a lot of the publications go to Ballard Spahr for this reason. So we retained Ballard Spahr, and we're currently in court now. We filed our motion to dismiss, and we are really confident that it will get dismissed. But he had a video. They think I watch their videos. I actually don't. There are folks who come into my DMs, and they just send me screenshots, and they say like, "Hey, Nate the lawyer said this, or this person said that." So in a live stream of some other jackass, they're talking about Ballard Spahr and asking, how can he afford this? He's, this is 50, 60 grand, this is what they would charge for this case. So first off, even there, if you're listening, Nate, you're wrong. It's not $50,000, $60,000. It's a hell of a lot more than that. You have no clue what you're talking about. Ballard Spahr won't even talk to you if it's 50, 60 grand. That's just, they just don't. For them, it's not worth it. They have so many clients. So 50, 60 grand, they're not even talking to you. So, but moving on from that, the guy sets up a fundraiser to sue me. He just begged for more money just recently. He raised another 34,000 or something like, 40,000 now, or a little over 40,000. And he wants to know who's paying my legal bills when he's grifting and asking folks to pay his legal bills. So, I know it's crazy. I thought
I saw something. Correct me if I'm wrong. Does he even practice law?
And that's a really good question. I don't know the answer to that. He tweeted out cases from when he was an ADA, old cases from the Bronx and stuff like that. I'm assuming they're criminal cases. He didn't tweet anything out recently. We couldn't find anything recent with him in terms of civil where he's representing someone. Civil. Criminal is a little bit different. Mm-hmm. But we couldn't find anything. In terms of, I can say this, and I got to put the disclaimer in here. In my opinion, he's a shit lawyer because, when you listen to some of the crap he says, and like I said, I don't watch his videos. If someone sends me like a snippet or something, or if they tell me about it, one of the things that I know he has said, he said something along the lines, oh my goodness, about default. On another case, I'm going up against another troll, and he kept saying stuff about it being default, which it was not in default. So either he had no clue what he was talking about, or he was lying to his viewers to get them to, donate to him. We've talked about this clown enough. But the one thing, I want to get across here, because he was going around saying that we were trying to settle with him, and that's just categorically false. What usually happens is, you have the plaintiff, they file their lawsuit, claim, this person defamed me, whatever. And then your lawyers respond, and it's usually with a motion to dismiss or whatever the case is. And then, their lawyer, in his case, his lawyer replies, they have like a reply brief or whatever. And then, we reply back. And then we wait on the judge to decide the first motion. So after they filed their reply, it was pretty much like, excuse my language, like, what the fuck is this? It's you didn't really respond to much of the argument, many of the arguments that we've made, and this is shit. Where's the beat? So the lawyers reached out, my lawyers reached out, and it was just like, hey, there's really nothing here. You know what? If you walk away now, we're not going to go after you in New York, because this individual lives in New York, and New York has uh, really, really. I mean, I don't know how to define it in terms, because I'm not a lawyer, but their anti-SLAPP laws are just, yeah, they have some really great anti-SLAPP laws to prevent folks like this from, going after you. And if your listeners don't know, basically what a SLAPP lawsuit is, when someone says something that you don't like, you try to sue them to quiet them down, because you feel like, okay, I don't like what you're talking about, and because of that, I'm going to sue you to shut you the hell up.
Yeah.
That's basically what this law, and he said as much. That's basically what this lawsuit, and not basically, that is what it is. It's a SLAPP lawsuit. So because he lives in New York, we can sue him in New York with an anti-SLAPP case, even though he filed the lawsuit in New Jersey. And then we also asked the judge in New Jersey to apply New York law, because he lives in New York law. Now, what's the reason behind all of that? It's because at the end of the day, if we're successful, and we do believe we're successful, he's going to have to pay a lot of money in legal fees.
Yep.
If he thinks it's $50,000 or $60,000, he bet if you add a few more whatever to it, because it's going to be a heck of a lot more. And so you know what they say, play silly games, win silly prizes. Well, here we go. So I mean, that's been my life, dealing with trolls for the last several years. And this individual, like I said, look, he thinks in his mind that he's, I'm going after Bouzy, I'm getting Bouzy. He just, in the same video, someone sent me the screenshot of him talking about going after journalists, journalists who's worked with Bot Signal. And for whatever, he says he can't find their numbers and things, which I also find to be odd, because journalists are really open with their contact information.
There's actual services that have all that shit in the database for $200. You can just subscribe for a month and get it all.
Yeah. Because I mean, they're looking for tips. They're looking for people to come to them and give them stories and things like that. So he's claiming that a lot of these journalists, he can't find them, whatever. And I'm going to hire someone to do a background search on the journalists, and we're going to contact journalists. He's a fucking buffoon. Excuse my language, but he's a fucking buffoon.
Yeah. I left Twitter, months ago. Not the lawsuit stuff, but like you're saying, there are some people that just, they have to play to their narrative. They have to play to their base. So they're going to stick with whatever they're saying and take it to a degree. And the hope is that with your lawsuit, that would be the end. But it's not, because he's going to put another GoFundMe up or Patreon or whatever and beg for more money, cover the cost. And after once he's milked you enough, he'll find another person. He'll milk that stuff as well. That's my biggest issue with like you're a founder, you're a startup founder, and I work with founders on a daily basis. I just sent out some advice and some information to a local here in Puerto Rico who wants to start up. It's something you do because it's your job, and your job is producing something that people are using that's helpful and all these things. He's producing shit to feed a shit economy that YouTube helps to monetize. That's all he's doing. It's not providing any value of any kind whatsoever.
No, I mean, look, no, you're absolutely right. And that is many of the YouTubers. Now, there are some YouTubers on there who do provide a lot of value, and I will say that. But these folks that are just sitting there talking about other folks, you're absolutely right. They provide no value. And that's why I've tweeted out multiple times, like, yeah, I'm feeding your family. Yep. If you're going to use my name, that's fine, because at least I know I'm helping to feed your family. And that's literally what's happening. But the one thing I will disagree with you on, you said that he'll continue. I don't think he's going to be able to continue because at some point the music will stop. It's the same thing with Alex Jones. He milked it for a while, but at some point he ended up owing $1 billion or whatever it was. At some point, a judge is going to rule. We do believe the judge will rule in our favor. And then at some point, he's going to owe a lot of money. And he's not going to be able to, let me just put it this way. Between his 2 fundraisers that he's done so far, I believe, we're close to maybe 80 now, maybe somewhere near there, close to 80,000. It's much more than that in terms of legal fees.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right because the whole gotcha, crazy toxic video culture needs to go away. It just needs to die. There are actual real world problems that need solving. That's I think about this all the time. Is when I was engaged on Twitter and had people come at me, I'm like, what are you doing in real life to change anything? What are you doing? Anything? Just name one thing you're doing that is affecting real life that helps positively change or even gets you closer to your goal, whatever that is.
Right.
And they never had an answer. Never had an answer. Because it's easier to sit on your phone and be triggered and F you, Dee Vinkowski or whatever. It's like, you don't even know me, man. Everyone, it's a toxic culture that needs to die, and you're doing something about it. And that's why I want to talk to you.
Yeah, no. Before we get into that, just one last thing. Yeah. I just wanted to say this, and you're absolutely right. We have a culture where there are folks that are doing things that are trying to change the world. And there are folks who are just sitting there because they know they bring nothing of value. Yep. So because of that, they go on the attack and they feel like, well, like you said, they're sitting around getting triggered and, they're going after folks that they don't know. And you're right. And that's the reason why, at the end of the day, a lot of times I don't let this stuff, affect me because there are so many people that come into my DMs and say, thank you for doing this. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for, launching Spoutible or whatever. And when you're dealing with trolls like Nate and the others, these toxic folks, when you have the positivity surrounding you, the negative stuff doesn't make way in your life. So, yeah, if I pass away tomorrow, he's going to be up Schitt's Creek because he's not going to be able to monetize shit. And like I said, at the end of the day, I'm all about legacy. And if we compared legacies, what's his legacy? Internet troll, YouTube,
exactly. Exactly.
So whatever. But yeah, man, let's move on.
I've got a bunch of questions actually from the Spoutible community for you.
Yep.
And I'm just going to jump right into that. So Maggie Cummings asked about when you edit your spouts, that the background color, it changes. So when you hit edit, it pops open a window and the color was a little bit inaccessible for her to read. Is that something that's going to change or has changed since she's?
She must be actually using the
dark mode.
The dark mode. So we'll check that and see. And that's probably the reason why that's happening. But yeah, that's an easy fix. Awesome. Actually, when we get off of this podcast here, or what would we call this? This is not really a podcast. This is like a video, whatever. Yeah, we could fix that. But yes, that will be fixed.
Awesome. Jose Lopez de Victoria, shout out Jose. So it would be cool to hear Christopher talk about challenges faced on building an inclusive product that works for everyone, and his thoughts on social media as a public health tool in terms of how we communicate, share information, and empower one another.
Yeah, the challenge is, honestly, for Spoutible is to make it as inclusive as possible, and then also, try to get as much input from folks without, because you can. So, for example, you can say, and this was the biggest debate recently, adult content, and that caused a whole uproar, and many of our users voted not to allow it, and we had users who were just like, I'm a sex worker. I'm I'm attacked constantly, and I would like to be on a platform that will allow me to discuss my work and things, which we do. We allow sex workers on the platform. We allow them to discuss their work and all that. We just don't allow sexually explicit content or conduct on the platform, which is basically porn. So when you have stuff like that, where you have to have this balancing act where you're trying to please as many people as possible, but at the same time stay to your original mission, your original goal, of keeping the platform safe. And so far, I think we've handled that. I think we've struck that balance where folks feel safe, and we're able to cater to a lot of folks. Yeah.
I think that when I think about social, and this was the promise of social, or the claim about Twitter or whatever, is that it's the town's public square. If it's the town's public square, you can't just pull your pants down and start doing stuff to yourself in front of everybody. There's a consequence for that.
Right.
You can't start spraying graffiti everywhere. There's a consequence for that, right? That's how I look at Spoutible, is that there's a bouncer. And if you don't play by the rules and act decent, you got to go. Not a hard equation to figure out. The second part of it is, because Jose is not an epidemiologist, was your thoughts on social media as a public health tool in terms of how we communicate, share information, and empower one another. And I know he's specifically interested in joining Spoutible because of all the misinformation about COVID-19 as an epidemiologist.
Yeah, I mean, and once again, that was the mission behind Spoutible, to not only just protect folks from targeted harassment, but also to protect them from disinformation. When you have people on Twitter saying bleach can cure COVID or ivermectin or whatever the hell, that's dangerous, because there are people that are reading that and believing it and going out and buying this stuff, and then they get COVID, or they already have COVID. They end up dying because they're taking a treatment that's it's not going to cure them. So I firmly believe that a platform is responsible for the content on there. Now, the law says differently. We have laws in place that protect social media platforms. I don't agree with that. Owning a social media platform now, I do believe the platform is responsible for the content. I do believe that a platform should be allotted enough time to remove the content, and we could debate that. That could be 24 hours, that could be 48 hours. We could debate how long it takes the platform to remove the content, but I do think we need to start holding social media platforms responsible, and hold them to account for what's on their platforms. It makes no sense that a platform like Twitter, where pretty much the world's world leaders are on Twitter. Biden is on Twitter. You have pretty much everyone on Twitter in terms of, like I said, world leaders, and you can then have Nazis and folks that are using the N-word and disinformation, just rampant, and all these bots. It's just ludicrous. So I tell folks all the time, like, look, I'm not naive. I know as Spoutible gets bigger and we have more users on, they're going to be foreign actors that are going to create fake accounts, because they're going to try to manipulate things, and we're always going to have to be one step ahead of these bad actors. But at the end of the day, at least we're trying. We're not just sitting on our hands and allowing this because of, hey, engagement and clicks, and why the hell should we care? Like, we care about our users and their well-being.
Yeah, I have a similar experience where on the corporate side of things, where there are certain industries that are heavily regulated because they've shown that they can't be trusted without oversight, right? That's just reality. And so the onus was put on those companies from the FDA, from federal government officials, that they were responsible for monitoring comments made on their platforms specific to health, right? Mm-hmm. So if someone's talking about off-label use of a drug, the drug maker cannot allow that. You're not supposed to be pushing off-label use of your drugs. So they had to then moderate these comments within what the FDA determined was a responsible or respectful amount of time. So a couple days is how they felt about it. So we'll see if it's 230 is the law, right? That they're talking about changing or having rulings on whatever, it wouldn't surprise me to see it where everyone has to take the approach you've taken, which is that if I'm going to own this, I need to be responsible for it. We'll see if that changes or not. Susan Brooks has a question. When is the fix anticipated? So after you expand a thread and use the back arrow at the top, it goes to where you left off, not the top of the timeline.
Right. So, they're talking about, and this is the biggest issue with Spoutible, and it's something that we're working on. When you click on a spout and you're reading it, and then you go back to your timeline, you get kicked all the way back up to the top. And it's something that we're working on, because we know that's, like I said, it's an issue for me as well. I've spotted about that a few times. The other issue kind of related to that, because these are all front end issues. Like after a while, if you have Spoutible open, you may notice your browser is slowing down a bit, and it's just the resources that it's using, memory and things like that. So you have to either close your browser or open it back up, or kind of refresh the page, whatever. These are two things that are currently being worked on. Look, when we launched the Spoutible, we launched this thing, and we were anticipating a large number of folks to come on, and we anticipated that we can handle 1 million concurrent users, and we have this code and everything ready, and we launch, and within 8 minutes, 10,000 people created an account, and from that point, it's just like Spoutible was like, Captain, I can't take it. I can't take it. So we had. Yeah, it was definitely a roller coaster ride. So for about the first week or so, we were scrambling behind the scenes. In terms of our network resources, optimizing that, code, optimizing that. Believe it or not, the timeline code was causing a hell of a lot of havoc, which was trickling down to pretty much everything else. It was a domino effect. And once we got the timeline code optimized, everything else just fell into place. So now that you're on the web, and I know you were there in the beginning, it's significantly faster than when we launched a month ago. So, I tell people all the time, like, we're pushing updates literally every single day, even sometimes on the weekend, but definitely Monday through Friday. All these different bugs and things that are, annoying the hell out of people, they're going to be fixed. They're not going to have to wait a year like how with Twitter, we see a bug and it takes like 6 months for it to get fixed. We're fixing things. You pointed out a bug to me yesterday, and we had, it actually fixed itself, but we were looking to find out what was going on. And we were looking to fix it, but it actually fixed itself, because what ended up happening was we changed something on the back end, and when we made that change on the back end, it just took time for everything else to catch up. That's the best way for me to put it for people to understand. Yeah. So when that did happen, everything once again fell into place and it was working again. Mm-hmm. I just want people that are listening, I don't want them to think like, oh man, like, this, I guess we could call it a bug, but it's technically not a bug. This thing where I'm clicking back, I'm going to the top, like, when is this going to get fixed? It will definitely be fixed within a few days. We're working on it. It was not a simple fix. We had to rewrite a lot of stuff, so it's going to get fixed.
Awesome. Carlotta Berry asked, how can more Black academics, engineers, physicians, scientists get blue checks? This is always a challenge over on Twitter.
Right. So what we're doing right now is we're not verifying new folks. All we're doing is verifying the folks who are already verified, because I'm going to be quite, upfront with folks. I don't have a verification team in place yet. Once we have that in place, we're doing two things. And I explained this in a couple of spaces. One, we're using a third party to handle that, it's a know your customer service. A lot of the banks and stuff use them. And we did a lot of vetting, because what we did not want was a company that would take the data from our users and then sell it. So we wanted a company that was not going to sell data, but then our users can trust, because we don't want to handle personal information. We don't want to handle someone uploading an ID, whatever. We want a company that deals with that has experience with that has the infrastructure to handle that. But my team would handle the parts afterwards. So if they say, for example, you try to get verified, and yes, you prove that you are who you say you are. Now my team still has to look to see if you're a notable person. Are you someone who's had a book, or or you're someone that is, I don't know, whatever. They gotta research that. They gotta look at your Instagram and all that other stuff. So I have to have folks in place for that.
Yeah.
But yes, I will say this, that the verification process compared to Twitter will be different. If you're a notable Black person, or you're someone who is a person of color, who may not be, you may not be famous, but you are someone well known in your field enough that you are considered to be notable, then yes, you're going to get verified. As long as you show us, like, you have papers that have been written, books, you've appeared on X number of shows or documentaries, whatever it is, we will verify that person. What you will not be able to do is you will not be able to buy verification from us. That's not going to happen. We already see, we see on Twitter what hellscape that turned quickly. Blue checks are actually blue checks on Spoutible. You have to earn it. You're not given it because you paid $8 or whatever. So yeah.
I verified that I have a one vanilla card. It's so crazy. The concept was so dumb to begin with. Amanda G has 2 questions. I think I can answer the first one. How long till the app shows up? That's later this month, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And then what's being done to draw journalists and politicians away from Twitter over to Spoutible? I think it's more the latter over to Spoutible. I don't know that as long as Twitter exists, I think that they'll be there in some form. So.
Well, yeah, they're always going to be there because, look, they've grown their following. I'm still on Twitter. I use Twitter to promote Spoutible. Most people have multiple social, media. They're using multiple social media platforms to promote whatever it is that they're promoting. That being said, look, we get journalists coming over every day now. And I try to explain to folks, like, Rome wasn't built in a day. Spoutible was a month old. We've done a lot of promoting in terms of using Twitter and sending out email blasts and stuff like that, but it's still a baby. And then, journalists, they're like, okay, I come over, I interact with folks. How do I know this is going to be there a month from now? How do I know it's going to be there 6 months from now? I don't want to invest time and energy into growing a following and then, Spoutible dies 6 months from now. So folks got to understand, like, as Spoutible ages and we get older and folks see, okay, look, there's engagement, there's people over there. All right, they've been around for a few months. I'm comfortable with creating an account and actually interacting over there because, okay, this is a serious project. But on the flip side of that, we do have things planned coming up in spring where we're doing outreach, inviting journalists to come down. We're setting up offices in New York, and they can come and talk with us and see what we're going to offer. But Bot Siddle, my other company, we've worked with a lot of journalists and a lot of outlets. They know about Spoutible. Some are coming over. Some will eventually come over. And then the other thing, I got to be honest too with this, is there isn't an app yet. It's web-based. Folks want an app. So that's the other part of it, that they will join once there's an app.
Yeah. And there's, like, Twitter started, I tried the exact date. It was like June 2016 or whatever. It was 2006, whatever. 2006. I don't think I joined until the following January. So, like, it just takes time. It's called adoption, and it's going to happen. And as it grows, people migrate, especially as the other app starts, it implodes, and people get tired of it. And if they get tired of, I used to like going on to Twitter to talk about news, sports, politics, whatever. And now that's gone because it's now the X app where I can buy movie tickets and bank and do all this other stuff on it. But the conversation part's missing. They'll find you. They'll find it. Someone asked, since many of us have public accounts on Twitter, this was me, Action Mel. Since many of us have public accounts on Twitter, can we have a paid feature to either bring the tweets over to Spoutible or somehow access them via Spoutible? This sounds like it paying for Musk's API, which I don't think would happen, right?
Right. So yeah. So, and we thought about this. We thought about allowing people to, like, import, which is not hard to do at all, import their tweets using the API and stuff like that. And we just decided we were not going to piss off Elon. Yeah. We right now we're doing the quick verify using the API. We thought that, that wasn't something that would piss off Elon.
Right.
It's just like we're just using it to verify people. But if we start pulling data from Twitter,
Yeah.
even though it's the users' data, it's their tweets, they may have an issue. So that's the reason why we stayed away from that.
Yeah.
We're trying not to piss folks off. What we're trying to do is just provide a platform for people to come and engage and not have to deal with the toxicity.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do understand why people, because the other request that we get, and is, it's not easy to do because, you have your followers and people are like, well, is there a way that I can import my followers or import people that I'm following and then follow them on Spoutible? The problem is a lot of folks are not using their handles that they're currently using on Twitter because it's like a gold rush. It's a new platform, so they can get the shorter handles. Someone could come over and get like Mike or Mike 1 or whatever, which you can't get that now on Twitter. So instead of going with their long handle that they currently have on Twitter, they come over to Spoutible and they get their shorter handle.
Yeah.
So it's just a pain in the butt. And then for us to do like something like, find like, so, when you install Twitter and a lot of other apps, they ask for your access to your contact list, because then you can get their emails, their numbers, and then match that up against your database and say, hey, your friend or your cousin is on Spoutible. We don't want to do that because we feel it's intrusive, and we don't want people to think like we're scraping their data and selling it. But that would be a way of being able to do it, and we may explore that later on once we build up that trust to say, hey, look, we can find people if you allow us to have access to your contact list.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I was able to grab at large for my agency, Large Media, and I was unable to get it for Twitter, unable to get even just Large Media on Facebook as a URL. So yeah, I did it, and it's a great transition into Aaron Krantz's question. What's the business model? Advertising is coming, people being asked to donate. Has a B Corp been considered? Social media platforms sometimes start well, but get messed up over time. I don't expect Chris to have all the answers, but I'd like to know how he's thinking about how this could be avoided.
Right. So monetization is definitely going to be ads, but we're going to do it. Our approach is to be as respectful as we can to our users. Our approach is always going to be users first. So we're not going to be doing the spammy stuff. We're not going to be doing what Twitter was doing before even Elon came along, where like every 5 tweets there was an ad. We may do something like, as you're scrolling, maybe every 10 spouts there's an ad, something that's not going to piss our users off. You're not going to be going to a thread and see like a bunch of ads and things. We're not doing that. That's one. The second thing is a premium account, and just give users more tools and things like that. So, you got the basic stuff where you can edit. We're not charging someone, which is absolutely insane, to edit. We're not charging for no safety features. All safety features will always be free. We're going to be adding 2-factor. You're not going to be paying for 2-factor. That's insane. But, you may want to have access to analytics. You may want to have the ability to schedule spouts, other premium stuff. So we're going to charge, maybe $3.99 a month, $4.99, somewhere around there. We're going to call it probably Spoutible Plus, because everyone is calling their, a lot of the streaming.
Add a plus to the end of it. Yeah.
That's just add a
like
plus.
Back in the day, we just put an I before everything. Now we put a plus at the end of everything. So,
there you go. So we just made this just for simplicity, Spoutible Plus, something like that.
Cool. There's a couple of quick ones here. Birthday Dre asks, is the rate of growth from the platform growing slower, faster, or as expected?
As expected. I'm going to release the numbers next week, but we had a target. We hit that target, and we did it without an app. And I don't think folks can really grasp that.
Yeah,
process
that. Big deal. It's kind of a big deal.
It's a big deal because a lot of folks do not like going to websites anymore. They don't even if the website behaves like an app, they still, for whatever reason, don't like going to the web version of it. They want to just install an app. So for us to hit our target with just a web version, we're extremely happy about that. And then We also did it after the mass exodus of Twitter. A lot of the alternatives benefited from when Musk was having his moment, and you had Mastodon, you had Counter Social, you had Post News, and a few others, Hive, who had a huge rush of new users because people were just like, I'm tired, I'm leaving. We came after that. It's still, we had a significant number of folks waiting to give us a try. So yeah, we're extremely happy with what we have so far.
The last question is, what are some of the new features that have yet to be done on social media? I think that's a future question. And but I would say
can
my
answer
answer is,
that.
oh yeah, let's
Yeah,
hear it.
no, I can answer that. I mean, look, we have a lot of things on the table, in the pipeline, and our roadmap. Um, you know, I say it like this: we're not trying to be another Twitter. We're trying to be better than Twitter. Folks say you guys look just like Twitter and things like that, and it's true. The layout is similar. It's not exactly the same. It's similar. And that was, it's familiar. It was done by design because we wanted people to come over and not have to fumble around and try to figure things out that they knew, what this did, what this does. Okay, it's not called a retweet, it's called an echo, but I know exactly what that is, and whatever. But as folks are coming onto the platform and they're getting used to it, we're going to transition from that to our own thing and adding things where people are just like, okay, this is cool. So once again, one of the biggest things for us is safety, is protecting our users, and we are implementing new stuff to protect. So we already have the stuff there, using bot sentinel scores. It's implemented because that was the biggest debate this week. It's implemented, it's there. We just didn't activate it because a lot of the users are new. A lot of the users are, just a month old. So we didn't think it would be fair to activate bot sentinel where a lot of folks, spouts would be at 0, where others who are more active will actually have a score. So we figured that we would wait until mid-March and activate it. So once that's activated, people will be able to see each other's bot sentinel scores. And we do also think that's going to help to tamp down a lot of the craziness, because no one is going to want to have a high bot sentinel score on Spoutible, because other folks can prevent you from replying to them. They can, not see you at all if they decide to do that. So having a low bot sentinel score is going to be imperative. We are also one of the first, compared to Twitter, for example, when you reply, let's say you block someone on Twitter, right? And they are blocked, they can reply to someone replying to you in your thread. So I can block you, but you can still do a search and look for people that are replying to me at Bouzy. And just, that's what that particular troll is doing right now that you were talking about earlier. You can't do that with Spoutible. Once you block someone, they cannot reply to anyone that's replying to you in your thread. So your threads are protected. So if this person wants to try to harass you, even though you have them blocked, and start to go after your followers or whatever, or say things about you to your followers, they can't. They're blocked. So they can't interact. We are doing things that a lot of platforms don't do because they want those interactions, like you explained earlier. They want to rile people up. So they just give you the basic stuff and still have you, fend for yourself, basically. We're not doing that at all. We're trying to give you as many tools as possible to fend off the attackers. So, once again, if I come to your thread, I say something that's insane, I dox you, whatever, you could remove that. We got a lot of flack in the beginning, like, you don't let people be able to remove replies. And I stayed firm on that. And no one is abusing that. No one is abusing that feature on Spoutible. Every now and then you get someone that comes in that says something that may be offensive to someone else. They remove it and everyone moves on. So, that's the roadmap.
Yeah.
Providing tools to help folks protect themselves, also help content creators attract more users to be able to, promote whatever it is that they're promoting, journalists, tools to help journalists as well. So we're going to be definitely doing things that are just different, and we're definitely going to have different features compared to other social networks.
But it's refreshing to hear, and like I've said it and heard it elsewhere, is that going to Spoutible is a breath of fresh air. If you're used to toxic Twitter, the community's engaged, it's fun, and yeah, I just again I can't thank you enough for doing what you did, because there needed to be an exit. Everyone needs that off ramp to get the hell off that other app. And if you do want to continue having discourse with people in a sane and rational manner, I advise you to go to spoutible.com and sign up. App's coming soon, so make sure you download that when it comes out. Christopher, thank you so much for coming on again. Nothing but success for you in the future.
Thank you for having me on, David. It was a pleasure.
Hey, if you made it all the way through, thank you for listening. And be sure that if you're not subscribed, you do that, whether it's on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it. Also, be sure to leave a comment on YouTube. And if you're feeling generous, give me a 5-star rating on both Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We'll see you next episode.